Thanks, Steve. Okay, so remote patient monitoring, a relatively new term for me in my older age. But basically what it is utilization of patient engagement platforms. That allows technology to then gather and transmit medical data from patients to healthcare providers in a different manner than what we're used to seeing patients in the hospital all the time. It allows monitoring of the patients outside the traditional care setting, that being the hospital. And it can take on many different forms. It can just be informative, or it can be interactive, and it can involve wearable devices so you can actually monitor a patient's post-operative vital signs. The question for you and for me when I first heard this is, why are we even having this discussion? And I think the reason, or the answer to that question requires a bit of reflection. So back when I was a lot younger with Mike Bourne, way back when we were residents, the average hospital stay was 14 days for a total joint, if you can believe that. And we would remove the sutures on the day of discharge from the hospital. Now that was a long time to be in the hospital, but we could treat the patient with heparin until the Coumadin was therapeutic. And we were able to monitor the vital signs for 14 days, see the patient's overall progress, and initiate physical therapy and give them a lot of instruction, as well as their families. The length of stay through the years that I practiced went from 14 to 7 to 3 to 1, and now everybody's talking about doing them as outpatients or maybe overnight. And there are risks associated, I think, with loss of monitoring, and it always concerned me, especially in the post-op event. The patient goes home and has a cardiac event, or misuse of narcotics, a DVT, a PE that's not noted, a delay in physical therapy. And I think the bigger issue is, or a huge issue is, the patient and or the patient's caregiver, especially the caregiver, having the feeling of just being lost in all of this because they've just had a big surgical procedure and now they're going straight home. So are we creating a possible firestorm with this type of treatment? You all know we face increased liability. Physicians are legally liable for everything. And are we flying off the edge? Is it really better care to be doing these cases as outpatient? I think there's literature that says it is better care. Patients do well at home, but they need to be monitored. So what are the remedies? Well, one remedy is if you're a hospital-based surgeon, you can keep the patient overnight monitored and send them home the next day. There's no foul in that. There's no problem with that. Post-op care suites that you've just heard about that are attached to an ambulatory surgical center allows the patient to be moved over to from the ambulatory surgical center into the care suite, literally across the hall within 23 hours, and then you have the luxury of watching the patient for another 1 to 3 days. That's a great model if you can do it, but not everybody in every state allows you to do it. So you get to these patient engagement platforms, and there are a variety of these, but what they all basically do is automate clinician-like tasks. You can deliver educational content to the patient when the patient's at home. You can send reminders to follow protocols. They can report their pain scores, report mobility levels, collect wound photos, and monitor their overall health. I think one of the big things these platforms do, it makes the patients feel more connected. It improves the patient's experience, that's been shown, and it improves the patient care. These can generate appropriate revenue also that I'm going to show you here in a second via remote patient monitoring. There are now excuse me, CPT codes for these, and it helps practices receive full credit for improvement activities under the merit-based incentive payment system. So it can really help your electronic health record and your remuneration schedules. It has the potential to improve patient outcomes, I truly believe, and it reduces the cost of care. There's a growing body of research showing reduction with use of these platforms, reduction of hospital length of stay, reduction of return visits to the emergency room, reduction in hospital readmissions, reduction in patient-generated office calls, utilization of formal physical therapy is reduced, utilization of home health care is reduced, and use of opioids has been shown to be reduced. So what are the different types of these patient engagement platforms? Well, there's the secure online websites. These are basically just a one-way valve, if you will, that allows patients to access their results. There are some examples noted. A government study ever showed that these one-way portals where patients are getting their data but they don't know what to do with it, only 33% of the patients really utilized this. So there's mobile health applications that are software programs that patients can use on their mobile devices that allow two-way messaging. Here are some examples. And the problem with these is they're messaging the physician and the physician's staff, so it's been shown to increase the providers and the staff's time. Patients love it, but you're getting bombarded with these messages. How about bots? Well, chatbots are an artificial intelligence software app that users can interact with through conversation. Now here are some examples. The patient receives an immediate answer, but these answers might not be your answer or might not be specific to your protocol. And so that may be a problem. And the conversations within the chatbot may or may not become a part of the electronic health record. So then the final option would be a full access service monitor. And the example here is Monovo, which is based in Lehigh, Utah in Silicon Slopes. This is a modern virtual care ecosystem with automated patient touch points. It gives real-time analysis and clinical support. And the idea is they want to give the patient peace of mind, improved safety, and improved outcomes, and give the physician the same. So with Monovo, it's fully interactive. It monitors the patient's vital signs while they're at home. There's automated key point questions are delivered to the patient. And the results are then monitored by the patient, by Monovo professionals rather than the physician's staff. And that relieves the workload from the surgeon and the staff. The data is downloaded to the physician's electronic health record so it can improve the physician's office notes. And they give you billable codes for physician remuneration. So here are a couple of the codes, one for virtual therapy, one for the remote patient monitoring, and you can see it generates revenue for your efforts. How does it work? Well, first there's an onboarding process and training of your staff. That's all done through Monovo for billing support, device management, and patient engagement. And then secondly, the patient takes home some wearable devices to monitor their vital signs. They're also instructed in virtual physical therapy and rehab. In development, what I think is exciting is a single armband. It's not an inflatable cuff, it just sits on the arm at the biceps. It has the potential to monitor blood pressure, heart rate, EKG, O2 saturation, blood glucose, and fall alert. So that'd be a nice thing, and they're monitoring this while the patient, again, is at home. So a continuous patient monitoring, this can be uploaded and be into the patient's electronic health record. And then the symptom survey is triggered by vital sign data, which is given by the patient or given by the care team. And then the patient data dictates the clinical team level of escalation. So that can be anything from a phone call to the patient to say, hey, are you doing okay? Are you feeling funny at all? You know, if they notice that the pulse goes out of the range they want it to be in. Or to the nurse, or to the physician, or a call to the EMT if they're not getting a hold of the patient and it seems like it's a life-threatening situation. And then they can participate in physical therapy at home. So how are these patient engagement platforms doing? What are the results? Well, the results are quite impressive in the literature. So Holt looked at total hips and knees and found improved physical function in 60% of the total knee group and 60% of the total hip group participation. Chris Peters from the University of Utah just reported, gave a nice talk in the Orthopedics today in Hawaii this year. Reviewed their results and said that patients did more exercise, they were in a better mood, fewer office calls, greater range of motion for total knees, decreased emergency visits. He went on to summarize that it offers value, it improves outcomes, decreases costs, improves the patient experience, and what I thought was really interesting was that it improved the quality of life for the providers, he feels. I can see why it would be true. NAP followed 207 total joint replacements, found a high rate of compliance when presented with this information, stating that digital technology provides a scalable, meaningful approach to engaging patients throughout the continuum of joint replacement care. He thinks it's a valuable adjunct to the traditional methods. Cost savings, 2 studies showing cost savings on virtual physical therapy, one saving $2,700 per patient, another $4,100 per patient. Patient satisfaction's high. Cowlow's average patient was satisfied 8.2, and 9 out of 10 would refer to another patient. physician satisfaction is high. And I think the big key here is that these technologies can actually reduce the amount of phone calls and voicemails that are to save the care team up to 7-8 hours a week. You're not getting all those phone calls anymore because it's being done through these applications. So, in summary, I think these patient engagement platforms are able to improve the safety of outpatient surgery, increase the comfort level of the caregiver and the patient while they're at home day one or immediately post-op, improve the orthopedic outcomes, reduce cost and add remuneration to your endeavors, improve the patient's electronic health record within your system, enhance the patient experience and their satisfaction, and improve the physician experience, which I think is key here. It's something that would allow physicians to actually have a better experience as well. I really think they're here to stay based on what I've seen and my review of the literature. I think there's many to choose from, anything from a simple interface to the complete postoperative evaluation, care, and physical therapy that I showed. There are positive results in the literature. I really think it's going to become the standard of care when you're doing all these outpatient procedures for total joints. And I worry that with increased liability, you're going to face increased liability if you're not using some type of postoperative monitoring when the patient goes directly home. So with that, enjoy the ride down this new frontier. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.